Though the Confederacy had laws prohibiting the integration of the Army, many African Americans were enlisted regardless. These African Americans served as slaves, cooks, guards, manservants, and soldiers for the Army. The Union Army legally enlisted blacks after July 17, 1862. Many blacks fled to the North to achieve freedom and fight against the Southern oppressors. The Union utilized many blacks as soldiers and other workers. In both armies, black soldiers were seen as expendable and were often sent out on the front lines with the dangerous battles. The goal of the abolitionist movement was the immediate emancipation of all slaves and the end of the racial discrimination and segregation. Advocating from immediate emancipation distinguished abolitionists from more moderate anti-slavery advocates who argued over gradual emancipation, and from free soil activists who sought to restrict slavery to restricted areas and prevent it spread further west. On September 22, 1862, following the dramatic Union victory at Antietam, President Abraham Lincoln presented the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. This document decreed that by the power of the United States Armed Forces, all slaves in states that were still in rebellion 100 days after September 22nd will be thenceforward and forever free. Furthermore, Lincoln established an institution through which blacks could join the U.S. Army on a presidential level of interrogation at the time. United States Colored Troops, USCT, served on many battlefields, won numerous medals of honor, and ensured eventual Union victory in the war. When the original 13 independent colonies announced their independence from Great Britain in 1776, they regarded themselves as sovereign, independent states. The demands of the Revolutionary War forced the states to recognize a need for central government. The United States Constitution, which the country has operated under since 1789, strengthened the central government in many ways, including taxation, the ability to call up states' militias for national service, etc. In the northern states, they were nationalists, so they felt pride, loyalty, and protectiveness towards their own country, while in the South, the loyalty to the interests of their own states was mainly their main goal, where they wanted to stay separate from the North to become their own country. And the Dred Scott versus Sanford, Missouri's appeal for statehood brought a confrontation between free and enslaved states in Congress in 1820. Each feared that the other would gain the upper hand. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 set a policy of admitting states in pairs, one slave, one free. Maine came in at the same time as Missouri. The compromise prohibited slavery above parole 36 degrees, 30 minutes in the lands of Louisiana Purchase, and it included a national fugitive slave law requiring all Americans to return runaway slaves to their owners. Dred Scott was a slave in Missouri from 1833 to 1843. He resided in Illinois, a free state, and in an area of Louisiana Territory where slavery was forbidden by the Missouri Compromise of 1820. After returning to Missouri, Scott sued unsuccessfully in the Missouri courts for his freedom, claiming that his residence in free territory made him a free man. Scott then brought a new suit in federal court. Scott's master maintained that no pure-blooded Negro of African descent and a descendant of slaves would be a citizen in the sense of Article 3 of the Constitution. In the election of Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln is selected the 16th President of the United States over a deeply divided Democratic Party, becoming the first Republican to win the presidency. Lincoln received only 40% of the popular vote, but handily defeated the three other candidates. Southern Democrat John C. Breckinridge, Constitution Union candidates John Bell and a Northern Democrat Stephen Douglas, a U.S. Senator for the Illinois. In South secedes, the force of events moved very quickly upon the election of Lincoln. South Carolina acted first, calling for a convention to secede from the Union. State by state, conventions were held and a confederacy was formed. Within 3 months of Lincoln's election, 7 states had seceded from the Union, just as Springfield, Illinois celebrated the election of its favorite son to the presidency on November 7th. So did Charleston, South Carolina, which did not cast a single vote for him. It knew that the election meant the formation of a new nation. The Charleston Mercury said, "The tea has been thrown overboard. The Revolution of 1860 has been initiated." In the Civil War, Northern victory in the war preserved the United States as one nation, ended the institution of slavery that had divided the country from its beginning. But these achievements came at a cost of 625,000 lives, nearly as many American soldiers as have died in all the other wars in which this country has fought combined. The American Civil War was the largest and most destructive conflict in the Western world between the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815 and the onset of World War I in 1914. The 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution officially abolished and continues to prohibit slavery to this day. The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution declared that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are American citizens, including African Americans. And the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits each government in the United States from denying a citizen the right to vote based on the citizen's race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The Reconstruction of the United States. The national debate over Reconstruction began during the Civil War in December 1863, less than a year after he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. President Abraham Lincoln announced the first comprehensive program for Reconstruction, the 10% Plan. Under it, when 1/10 of the state's pre-war voters took on an oath of loyalty, they would establish a new state government. To Lincoln, the plan was an attempt to weaken the Confederacy rather than a blueprint for the post-war South. It was put into operation in parts of the Union-occupied Confederacy, but none of the new governments achieved broad local support. In 1864, Congress enacted, and Lincoln pocket vetoed, the Wade-Davis Bill, which proposed to delay the formation of the new Southern governments until a majority of the voters had taken a loyalty oath. Some Republicans were already convinced that equal rights for the former slaves had to accompany the South's readmissions to the Union. In his last speech on April 11, 1865, Lincoln referring to the Reconstruction in Louisiana, expressed the view that some blacks, the very intelligent, and those who had served in the Union Army ought to enjoy the right to vote. Formation of the KKK. A group including many former Confederate veterans found the first branch of the Ku Klux Klan as a social club in Pulaski, Tennessee in 1866. In the summer of 1867, local branches of the Klan met in a general organization conventions and establishment what they called an invisible empire of the South. Leading Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest was chosen as the first leader, or Grand Wizard of the Klan. He presided over a hierarchy of Grand Dragons and Grand Titans and Grand Cyclopses. The Jim Crow laws were created in 1876 simply to segregate black people from the white population. Some English dictionaries define Jim Crow as a name for an implement that can straighten or bend iron rings, or along with Jim Crowism, systems or practices of racial discrimination or segregation. The American English Dictionary suggests that the name only emerges in dictionaries in 1904, but is clearly used generally in 1876.